My name is Dr. Robert Mann, Robert Mann. I'm a forensic anthropologist and adjunct professor in anatomy and pathology here at the John A. Burns School of Medicine in Hawaii.
So it's a pretty incredible thing that you're about to do, because you're about to head to Maui tomorrow. Can you give us an idea of your scope of work and what we can expect when you head for Maui, or when you arrive to Maui?
I will be heading to Maui tomorrow if we can get a flight. Actually, what happens is I do have a lot of experience in mass disasters and mass fatalities. And one of the things we've got to do is, once you get to the scene, you have to evaluate what you have before you. You have to evaluate how you're going to move forward, how you're going to organize this. There's so many, the details really are in the devil. So you've got to figure out and estimate what it is that you've got on hand, and how are you going to approach that to a successful resolution. So my thought is, to get there, I would just be one of the folks that will be assessing the situation, perhaps giving some operational guidance, operational thoughts, and how to move forward. And what we're really dealing with is the kind of straightforward approach of, what is the first step in all of this? So if you have a mass disaster such as this, and these wildfires that have destroyed so many homes, so many businesses, how are you going to locate the individuals that may have perished? And one of the ways that we do that, of course, is through discussion, and we figure out, what are we going to do first? So one of the things you're going to do is you're going to photograph the scene, you're going to document everything that we're looking at, because once you move something, no matter what it is, when you move it, you can't put it back into place. So we want to see everything exactly as it is when we arrive. And so we're going to be looking for evidence of burning. We're going to be looking for evidence of human bodies, of remains. And you don't really know where to expect to find those, because people could have been in a bedroom, they could have been in a living room, they could have been trying to exit the home, in a car, in a truck, outdoors. And so we're just going to have to figure out, what is the best way to try to document the individuals that are there, and then how to recover them and keep a good provenance, or keep track of what remains, what bodies, what individuals were found, and where were they found, because that's really important. We may not have any addresses that are located, that are associated with these homes and businesses. So if you go in and you look at a structure that is burned down, and you say, well, that's 1602 such and such address, that may not make sense visually anymore, because 1602 is kind of been destroyed. So we're going to have to rely on GIS. We're going to have to rely on different types of methodologies to help us approach this difficult situation, recover the individuals, take them back to the morgue or whatever the facility is, and then start with the process of identification. And the identification can be the hardest part of the entire process. To do the recovery is to locate individuals. You can do that, but then once you get those individuals and the remains from whatever the site happens to be, wherever the individuals were, where they were found, now you've got to take the next big step, and that big step is identification.
That's a very complex situation for the ground team. And I think so many people they want information instantaneously, but what you described to me takes time. So realistically, how long will it take until your crew can identify a body?
That's a very good question, because how long does it take from the time you recover remains to the time that you can identify those remains, return them to the family, to the next of kin? That can take, it can go anywhere from hours to days to weeks to months. And the number of months, nobody, we don't have the crystal ball. We can't foresee how long this is going to take. But it is an arduous process. It is a very meticulous process. And it's one that you do not want to make a mistake at. If you make one misidentification, then almost certainly you've made two misidentifications. So we want to avoid that at all costs. And the way that you avoid that is by being very meticulous, very careful about how you do the recoveries, and then how you do a triage. Which of the individuals are most likely to be identified quicker? For example, with fingerprints, with dental. Which individuals are going to be more difficult and it's going to take longer? For example, DNA. And DNA is something that typically takes longer than fingerprints, than dental, although not always. So really what you're looking at is you're looking into the future and you're trying to predict how long is it going to take to identify these individuals, a specific individual. The factors that determine how quickly you can identify somebody is tremendously varied. And there's so many different parameters to that. There's all kinds of things that are going to come into play. For example, how much of a body or an individual you recover does not necessarily mean you're going to identify that individual quickly. You may find an arm, for example, or a finger, whatever it happens to be. You may be able to identify those remains very quickly because you have something on hand that is going to allow you to match those remains to the name of an individual. And then sometimes you have a complete body and it's even more difficult to identify. So it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. Remains typically that are brought in from, once they're recovered, they're taken back to the morgue, back to a facility, and they're going to go through, typically they will go through a triage. And the triage is medical doctors, anthropologists, and others looking at the remains and saying, we think that, okay, there's teeth here. The teeth are in good condition. There are fingerprints. Okay, it would go to the fingerprint station. It would go to the dental station. And if the fingerprints don't work out, then it goes to the dental station. If the teeth don't work out, then it may go to another station. Then they may focus on material evidence, a watch, a ring, an amulet that's found with the body. Or lastly, it may go into the DNA aspect. And if it's going to be DNA, then it's going to have to be a sample of bone or tooth, typically taken, can be soft tissue that can be taken from an area of the body that is protected. There are areas of the body that are protected from burning more often than not, under the armpits, under the chin, things like this. So it's really going to be the condition of the body, the condition of the remains, and what's going to be available on the other side of the coin to make the identification. You can have a body, for example, or you can have teeth. And you can take great x-rays of the teeth and you think, oh, this person had a lot of dental work. We're going to identify them quickly. That could be the case as long as you have the other side of the coin. One side of the coin is you have the teeth and the remains that are recovered from the field, but you have to have something to compare that to. And that's the other side of the coin. The other side of the coin is, are there available dental records, x-rays, anything like that, dental charts? And if there are, then that may lead to a very rapid identification. There is no absolute solution to how quickly somebody can be identified. There's so many factors. Nobody wants to ever get the remains back of somebody who's not their loved one. And so we all are aware of that. Everybody on boots on the ground there, and the families, the loved ones. So we have to make sure that we're doing the job properly. And doing it properly means you don't ever take a shortcut. And you have to make sure that you're documenting everything. And you're taking the prudent steps to do this, scientifically sound steps. If you find something, for example, and I've worked cases where an identification card is found with somebody. If you make a presumptive identification that this ID card must in fact be the person that was carrying it, that's not necessarily a good way to do it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So what we try to do, from when I was working for the US government for 30 years, the goal really was to establish a biological identification. And that's something from the body. It's not something, in my own opinion, it's not something we're looking for with a driver's license or a bracelet, although that can help narrow the pool of individuals, potential individuals. So my own thought in all of this is, let's go for biological identification. And if you do that, then you're gonna have strong footing, and you're not likely to look back and go, that was a mistake, because the last thing anybody wants is a mistake. Prevent mistakes means use the proper procedures, the right protocols, and take your time and do it properly.
Do you know, Doctor, how many people are going to be on your team?
Okay, I've been brought in today, which is 6 days after the disaster. And so I don't know how many people are involved, but latecomers to this is myself here at the medical school. Dr. Ariel Grunthal Rankin is a forensic anthropologist at the University of Hawaii West Oahu. She has been asked to go to Maui and assist as well. So we know we have those two individuals. But my understanding is, and it's just hearsay, my understanding is that there is a DMORT team, and that's Disaster Mortuary Organizational Response Team. Those are teams that are set up in groups to respond to mass disasters by region. And so the Hawaii Pacific region would be a DMORT team, certain team that if there's a disaster, that team gets mobilized as quickly as they can. And so my understanding is there's a DMORT team from California. I have some details, but I don't know for sure. But from one of the universities in California, and they have some very, very exceptionally gifted forensic anthropologists on that team. There are medical examiners on the team. There are coroners. There are embalmers. There are first responders. There's police. There's a multitude of very diverse talents, because this is not something that can be done by one person. It's not something that can be done by one group. This is where we have the ohana. You have to have all of the experts come in together, put these two hands together, and work towards a common goal. So I don't know the exact number. My guess is there are hundreds. I hope I'm not misspeaking, but my guess is there are probably hundreds that are going to be already there that are doing the boots on the ground work.
Doctor, is this at the request of the governor to bring more people in?
Is this at the request of the governor to bring more people?
Again, speaking secondhand, I think it is at the request of the governor, and again, this is just off the cuff, because what's happening, this is such a complex situation. There's the communication channels go in a lot of directions, and getting all those communication channels coming into one place is a difficult thing. And I know they are trying their best to do everything they can to get this done right, to mobilize, to get active, and just get on it. So that is something that is already in the works. I heard about this, and the invitation came with, we kind of reached out to a couple of different folks. Dr. Rankin reached out Haima, and that was, yes, we need more people. We need you to join us. Can you come out and as quickly as you can? We said, yes, we will. So we're heading to Maui, as far as we know, tomorrow, and we'll get on the plane. We'll get there. As soon as we get there, then we'll figure out what the next steps are. But for us to become involved in this, we can't just step forward and say, I'm getting on a plane, I'm going there. It doesn't work like that. There are people who already have responsibilities and jurisdictions to handle this. So we did reach out. We got a request back, and the request was, yes, we need your help. Please come as quickly as you can.
And then finally, Doctor, you've been doing this before, this recovery process. Does it get any easier?
Okay, yeah, I have done quite a few of the mass disasters, mass fatalities. I mean, there was the air crash on Guam. I think it was in 1997. More than 206 people lost their lives. The Asian or the Indian Ocean tsunami in 2004. That was incredibly, so many people died in that, and that was such a complicated issue. 9/11 with the Pentagon, I worked that one as well in the morgue. So there have been quite a few mass disasters. They don't get any easier. We learn more about how to approach it, and we learn more about the mechanics. How do we do it better? How do we prevent mistakes? How do we do it quicker? How do we do it more efficiently? all of that comes with experience, it comes with time, but you know, it's a terrible cost that people have to suffer and lose lives for us to become better at what we do. But the bottom line is no, it does not become easier. It just does not. Any loss of life is tragic, it's terrible, it's horrific. And so those of us who are working in disaster responses, we just take whatever our experience is. We have to put all the personal aspects of this on a back burner because that doesn't help us. We have to move forward with the science and with determination and give it our best. So it doesn't get easier. No, never.
And then finally, doctor, to wrap this up, is it possible to recover a victim whose remains are burned beyond being able to get an identification?
Yes, I mean, it is possible to recover victims, and they are so badly burned that at this point they can't be identified. DNA has been kind of looked at as a magic bullet for many years, and it holds promise on cases that we can't identify with fingerprints because the soft tissue goes fast. You don't have fingerprints, you can't do fingerprints. The next step we would do was dental, and that again, you have to have two sides of the coin to be able to make the comparisons. Teeth survive very well. Areas of the body that have a lot of soft tissue, they're protected very well. Parts of the body that are not well protected, the nose, fingertips and things, those may go quickly. I think we always have to hold hope that there are methods and technologies coming down the pike that are going to help us fix these problems and answer these questions that we don't have today, because tomorrow we may have the answer that is going to help many families. So I would let the science do what it's got to do. We all have to have patience, even the responders and the folks who are trying to do the identifications. We have to have patience. We have to give it our best. Let the science do its job and let the scientists and the responders do their best that they can do. And when it's all said and done, I'm hoping that no one goes unidentified. And that does happen, but it takes time. So our fingers are crossed, our hearts are out with you, and God bless you.
And doctor, I said last question, but I do have one final one. In your experience, let's just try to be realistic, because again, you said patience, and you want to do this. Everyone wants to do this prudently. How long could this take? Because we have 99 victims so far that are confirmed, and we're expecting that number to go up. How long could this take?
I wish I had a crystal ball to answer that. I don't think there's anybody on earth who can give you a reliable answer. There's too many unknowns. There's too many variables. I think the active part of being on Maui and doing the recovery is going to be weeks or months. The identifications themselves, they are still making identifications from 9/11, at any point in time. I think if we go back and look in the past few months, past 6 months, perhaps, I'm just off the top of my head here, we may have made an identification of somebody who died in 9/11, either the Pentagon or the Twin Towers, and that's that many years later. So some of these, I worked for 23 years with the Joint POW MIA Accounting Command, JPAC, that's now DPAA, and our job was to go out and to search for, recover, identify individuals, missing service members from all past wars. So I worked on cases where we identified the Civil War sailors from USS Monitor. We identified the individuals from the CSS Hunley. I hope I said USS Monitor and the CSS Hunley. But that's 100+ years later, and identifications are being made. And I'm sure hoping that this is not going to take many years to do. But I think if I were sitting there and if my family member was missing, I would be saying, I think it's going to be months to maybe a few years for the identifications to be made. And we all want it to be sooner. But I think we all want to hear the truth as best we know it. And that's the best I know.